Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Caden's independent media production, product feature day from Attack Drumheads. We are talking about the Logic Dot snare batter. Attack and other drum companies have dotted heads. There's a lot of varieties of dotted heads. This is a unique, kind of brand new take on the idea of having a center dot on your snare batter. There's a lot of reasons to have a center dot, and this one adds a little more to the mix in terms of the usability and kind of like what it's for. First things first, the details about the rest of the head. We're talking sort of the standard 10mm Dynaflex film, no overtone ring around the edge, coated snare batter. But then we have, I hesitate to call it a center dot because it's not exactly a center dot. It's an elongated center dot that increases the area of both kind of protective quality of the dot and also the tonal things that you get out of having that extra mass there. It's important to note that this dot is on the outside of the head. It's not an under dot. So this is adding durability, and it's also not coated, so you can see that it has a little bit of a different kind of texture to it. All right, first up, medium tuning. Again, pitch is not super important, just went for a nice kind of medium sound out of this nice medium drum. The feel is as expected. Feels like a dot on there, a little more mass in the center, kind of focused tone. The no overtone ring around the edge adds a little more focus, makes the whole thing a little more powerful, and the fundamental and the punch is really coming out. But as you move away from the center and move more towards the edge, you get a little bit more of that giving, a little bit more bouncy kind of feel that you get when you move away from the center, but retaining the durability of having the added mass there. Now, there's a lot of things that an elongated dot like this can offer. For me, being a traditional grip player, a lot of the times I find myself striking the center of the head for the big impact and then playing my ghost notes and quieter things a little off the center because it feels a little bit better to me. And for a traditional dotted head, that would mean leaving the dot and coming back to it. And in this case, you have the same feel over that whole area, which I think is true also for a lot of match grip players. Another thing that I've always done and that I picked up from talking to people that played funk music and other kinds of just things where you want different sounds is actually not just playing ghost notes off center of the drum, but actually playing rim shots and playing your grooves off center of the drum when you want a little more overtone or you want a feel in there that's kind of getting more tone out of the drum. I do this a ton. In fact, the way that this dot is actually on there pretty much mirrors the wear pattern of my snare batters anyway. So for me, wanting to play off center of the drum, I spend a lot of time there anyway. And granted, like ghost notes are not going to wear out areas of your head the way that rim shots and really heavy-handed hitting do, but I actually hit that spot on the drum hard all the time. So this is an added benefit for me for sure. Generally speaking, if I'm choosing a head with a dot of any kind on it, I tend to either use those heads for a very high and almost kind of muted sort of tuning or a very low tuning where added mass in the center and also a ring around the edge if we have it, which we do with this head, kind of focuses everything and allows me to do a super low tuning without having to add any moon gel or anything. So like retaining the resonance and retaining the tone and the sustain of the fundamental, which this head does in spades. As you can see, there's no added muffling to this. It's just a great sound. I actually didn't even adjust the snare side head on this. We experimented a little, but the original tension was actually the right one for this super low tuning too. Now, it's worth noting that when we saw this initially, we were skeptical of anything applied to a drum head that's not symmetrical. I mean, if you think about rings, if you think about vents, if you think about a normal dot, we're always thinking about concentric, round and even around the head so that it's not going to change the overtones or mismatch the weight of different areas of the head. And I actually exclaimed spontaneously when I put this on here that it was super easy to tune up and it was super easy to move through all these tunings too, which was not what I was expecting when you imagine putting more mass on the head that isn't centered or isn't right at the edge. Additionally, at this super low tuning, it's worth noting that, anybody who does these kinds of tunings and also is hitting medium to, swinging for the fences hard, low tunings, the heads get wrecked faster. So this is exactly the sort of situation where having more durability, having a top dot is going to make the thing last longer. And if that's a tuning that you go for, I highly recommend that. Now let's go the other way. Let's go to Stuart Copeland country. I feel like you're going to be surprised. Now for me, super high tunings, I love to hit them really hard. I love to hit them really, really hard. I love to really activate the drum. I love to get as much just like crack and just like, magnum sound out of it. So having durability and also a little bit of overtone suppression that doesn't choke the drum out at this tension, it's exactly what I'm looking for. Additionally, again, when you're tuning this high, I feel like articulation at the lower volumes and the lower heights is something that we want. So having a little bit more mass in those areas is going to give us more durability for that. At this tuning, it's actually adding articulation because we're playing on uncoded. And it gives us kind of the best of both worlds where going from all the way at the bottom, we're using this dot for one function. In the middle, it's giving us a different function. And at this super high kind of ska tuning, it's doing a third whole other thing. Now, in addition to sound, we have to talk about feel, because if you've ever moved between single ply heads, any kind of dot, anything that's added to the head, you're going to experience a difference in feel. If you're a person who is into having a head with a center dot, this feels the same as any head that I've played with a center dot. However, I feel personally like it's less stifled in the center because the portion of the dot that's in the center is smaller than a lot of center dots I've run into. And having some of that sort of pushed to the side in this elongated way is giving us a nice bit of suppression around the edge. It's not super dramatic, but the combination of the actual center mass not being quite as big as some other dots you may have seen is actually making it behave for me more like a standard head that hasn't had anything added to the center. I'm super picky about feel of drum heads. I'm as picky about that as I am about the sound of them. And we are both really, really pleased with the fact that this really does just feel like sitting down at a standard head at any tension. It's important to me to think about disposables like drum heads and drumsticks in terms of when I would use them, what I would use them for, and why I would choose them. I have different sticks in my stick bag, and I have different drum heads that I choose from as well. This, for me, is an ideal head for somebody that wants the durability of a center dot, but also wants the flexibility, frankly, of not a center dot. They want the opportunity to play toward the edge and carry the sound of the center over closer to the edge. You want the durability, but you also want the feel of a head that doesn't feel sluggish because of a lot of stuff added to it. folding in the no overtone ring around the edge, it's got a combination of giving me traditional feel, traditional volume, a lot of volume, and then also a nice slight amount of suppression of overtones and really usable sounds through a big spectrum that retains durability throughout. All right, that about wraps it up. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much to Attack Drumheads for sharing these with us and allowing us to show them to you and experiment with them and take them through all these tunings, see what it can do. There's a lot of choices for drumheads out there, and anytime that we can zero in on something that has a beautiful place in the palette of heads we choose from, it just makes me really happy. Don't forget to please like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell below so you hear about everything that we're coming out with, product videos, snare spotlights, mountains of things on the Patreon. Follow the link below, check that out. There's a lot of extra stuff on there, stories, you know, extra playing, everything. And lastly, super curious to hear from the center dot players out there. I know there are a lot of options for those things, and I'm wondering also, like, not just what you use, but if you've ever run into frustrations with them, because this definitely solved a big issue for me with using center dot heads.